It was just after midnight on a July night in 1997. A quiet street in Southern California, the kind of place where nothing ever seemed to happen, suddenly turned into the scene of something terrible. A car pulled over to the side of the road. Then, out of nowhere, gunshots broke the silence. A man ran, trying to get away, but within seconds, he collapsed. When police got there, they found a shocking scene: a body on the ground, a woman sitting by the car, and a story that didn't make sense. This wasn't a random attack. It was part of something much bigger, something planned long before that night. If you're a fan of true crime and criminal investigations, you won't want to miss our new book, The Ultimate Book of Serial Killers: 180 Files of the World's Most Notorious Murderers, now available on Amazon. You can also purchase the PDF version directly from our website for instant download. You'll find the link in the video description and in a pinned comment. Now, let's dive into today's case. Bruce Cleland was born on March 31, 1954, in South Pasadena, California. He grew up in an affluent neighborhood with his older sister, surrounded by comfort and opportunity. Both of his parents were highly educated and financially secure, and there were also strong hints of family wealth from earlier generations. From the outside, the Clelands looked like a model of success: accomplished parents, well-raised children, and a bright future. From an early age, Bruce showed remarkable intelligence. But as he entered his teenage years, he quickly discovered that brilliance alone did not shield him from cruelty. In 1968, he began attending South Pasadena High School. It was here that his appearance and mannerisms made him a target. He was often teased, even given the nickname Tiny Tim. The name came from comparisons to entertainer Herbert Carey, better known as Tiny Tim, famous for his unusual voice and eccentric stage presence. For Bruce, the nickname was more than a jab at his slight build and high-pitched voice. It reflected the way people saw him: gentle, awkward, and easy to overlook. Instead of lashing out, Bruce often coped with bullying by laughing at himself. He rarely defended himself or showed anger, and his passive nature left him vulnerable. Shyness defined much of his high school years. He had no romantic relationships, kept to himself, and seemed fragile in the eyes of his peers. Yet, behind this exterior, there was a young man with wit, humor, and loyalty. He made a few close friends who appreciated his sharp mind and gentle personality. At home, his parents, especially his father, Harold Cleland, were his strongest supporters. Bruce and Harold shared a close bond, often attending air shows and football games together, moments that gave Bruce a sense of belonging and stability. Although dating intrigued him, Bruce's lack of confidence kept him on the sidelines. He believed rejection was inevitable, so he rarely even tried. Instead, he immersed himself in academics. He found joy and comfort in science and technology. Physics, mathematics, and computers became his world, and his dedication paid off. By the time he graduated in June 1972, he stood out as one of the strongest students in his class. His next step was Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, California, one of the nation's top science and engineering schools. While there, Bruce experimented with social life, beer drinking, parties, and new friendships, but never allowed distractions to interfere with his studies. 4 years later, in June 1976, he graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree. His hunger for knowledge drove him further, and he entered Stanford University, where he earned a master's degree in 1978. With his education complete, Bruce launched into his career. He began working at General Electric in San Jose, California. The job paid well, and he quickly became financially comfortable. Unlike many of his peers, Bruce didn't chase luxury or romance. Instead, he lived simply and quietly, saving as much money as possible. Later, he joined TRW as a software engineer. His work there was highly technical and sometimes involved classified projects for the U.S. military. In 1987, he relocated to Redondo Beach as part of a transfer within the company. By then, Bruce was earning more than $100,000 a year, a huge salary for the time. Yet, his lifestyle remained modest. He was known for driving older, unremarkable cars, showing little interest in appearances or luxury. For Bruce, practicality mattered more than status. He funneled his income into savings, stocks, and careful investments, steadily growing his fortune. Colleagues noticed his discipline and frugality. Every decision, whether financial or personal, seemed to reflect his thoughtful, methodical character. By the 1990s, Bruce Cleland was well into his 30s. His appearance had matured, and the shy young man who once carried the weight of high school ridicule no longer had reason to feel self-conscious. Yet, when it came to love, he still seemed blocked. Years of solitude and inexperience had left him unsure of himself in matters of the heart. But that was about to change. In late 1995, Bruce met a woman who would transform his life, Rebecca Salcido. The encounter happened at a swap meet where Rebecca was selling spices. For Bruce, who had never been much of a dater, the moment was striking. He was instantly captivated by her charm and beauty. Unsure of how to approach her, he asked if she might be interested in a job in an IT company. Rebecca played along, handing him her resume. Not long after, Bruce called her, and their relationship began. From the start, Rebecca's intentions seemed unusually direct. Within a week of meeting, she suggested marriage. For Bruce, who had never received this kind of attention before, it felt overwhelming and flattering. He agreed, stepping into his very first relationship with wide-eyed hope. Rebecca wasted no time in introducing him to her family and to her 5-year-old son. She explained that she had no contact with the boy's father and didn't even know who he was. Rebecca quickly began leaning on Bruce for support. She complained about her living situation, and Bruce, eager to help, offered to rent her an apartment. He furnished it, covered the expenses, and bought her a car. First it was a used Honda, then, after some persuasion, a new Toyota. For Rebecca, gifts seemed to flow easily. For Bruce, who had spent years saving diligently, providing for her felt like an expression of love. He wanted to give her everything she asked for: a boat, cosmetic surgery, jewelry. Naive in romance, Bruce believed he had found a woman of principles. Rebecca insisted she wanted to wait until after marriage for physical intimacy, something Bruce interpreted as a sign of strong moral character. She claimed she had only ever been with one man, her child's father. To Bruce, that made her special, worth protecting, and worth every sacrifice. When it came to the engagement ring, Rebecca took her time. Eventually, she selected an extravagant diamond worth $10,000. an amount that Bruce, though cautious with money in other areas, willingly spent. But the spending didn't end there. Rebecca wanted a spacious home for them to share near Los Angeles. Bruce purchased a four-bedroom house valued at $350,000, an enormous amount in the mid-1990s. Their civil wedding was held in October 1996. But Rebecca dreamed of a grand church wedding, one with all the extravagance she felt she deserved. That ceremony was planned for January 1997. Until then, she suggested it would be better if she and her son moved into the new house, while Bruce stayed behind until the church wedding. Believing her words, Bruce agreed, convinced this was simply a tradition rooted in love and respect. In truth, Rebecca had quickly learned how to exploit his innocence and eagerness to please. To Bruce, this was his first taste of real romance. To Rebecca, it was an opportunity. She knew he had no experience with women, no frame of reference for manipulation, and that he was deeply flattered by the affection of a younger, attractive partner. What he interpreted as love, she was already treating as leverage. But who was Rebecca Salcedo, really? Her story began long before she met Bruce. Rebecca's mother, Lucy, had grown up in Mexico. As a young woman, she suffered abuse that led to pregnancy. Pressured by her family to marry her abuser in order to avoid shame, she entered into a marriage that was doomed from the start. It was unhappy and unstable, with constant financial struggles. Eventually, the family moved to the United States, seeking better opportunities. On August 15, 1969, in California, Rebecca was born, the third daughter in a household already burdened with hardship. When Rebecca was still young, her father abandoned the family. Years later, they learned he had died. Lucy suddenly had to shoulder everything, raising children, running a household, and earning money to survive. Life in California was expensive, and though extended family members helped, money was always scarce. Eventually, Lucy remarried. She met a man named Pedro Salcedo, who took her daughters in as his own. Pedro provided some stability, but he was not wealthy, and life remained modest. Lucy herself struggled with her mental health, which worsened over time. She withdrew from the world, leaving her daughters to take care of the house and, often, themselves. Inside the home, tension reigned. The sisters competed constantly, clashing rather than supporting each other. Without strong parental guidance, there were no real authority figures. Everyone did as they pleased. As she entered her teenage years, she learned she could do what she wanted, when she wanted. Instead of focusing on school, she preferred parties and the company of popular friends. She had a natural charm and quickly realized how much attention she could attract, especially from boys. Her looks and bold behavior gave her an edge, and she learned to take advantage of it. There was always someone ready to give her a ride, spend money on her, or offer her gifts. By the age of 16, Rebecca had already made a life-altering decision. She entered into marriage, but it wasn't for love. Instead, it was transactional. She received $2,000 for marrying a man who needed a green card, something she could provide as a U.S. citizen. It was the beginning of a pattern, using relationships as a means to gain stability, security, or money. The early 1990s brought major turns in Rebecca's life. In 1991, she was arrested for possession of illegal substances, which she was suspected of intending to sell. She received a 3-year prison sentence. Around the same time, it became clear that she was pregnant, and she admitted she didn't know who the father was. On October 22, 1991, while still in prison, she gave birth to a son. Family members took the child in while she served her sentence. Despite her original term, she managed to gain release after only a year and a half. None of this would ever be revealed to Bruce. He had no idea about the prison time, the drugs, or her reckless past. By the time she met him years later, that part of her history had been carefully hidden. After leaving prison, Rebecca faced the challenge of starting over with no job, no education, and a child to raise. But she didn't face this alone. She entered a relationship with a former police officer named Sherry. To those who knew Rebecca well, Sherry was considered her true love. Rebecca even tattooed Sherry's name on her leg, a sign of commitment. For a time, the three of them, Rebecca, Sherry, and Rebecca's son, lived together as a family. This period, stretching from 1991 to 1994, seemed to be the most stable and genuinely happy years of her life. But tragedy struck in 1994. Rebecca's mother, already struggling with poor mental health, took her own life. The loss devastated Rebecca. Her behavior changed dramatically. She became irritable, aggressive, and unpredictable. She argued with Sherry constantly, went back to partying, and began seeing other people. Eventually, the relationship collapsed. Once again, Rebecca was left searching for someone new to anchor her life. It was then that she encountered Bruce. To Rebecca, Bruce was an opportunity. She recognized his gentle, naive nature right away. She understood exactly what kind of story to tell, a story that would make him believe she was principled, loyal, and deserving of his love. He was the perfect target, wealthy, inexperienced in relationships, and eager to believe in her. When Bruce bought a house for their future together, Rebecca didn't wait for their marriage to truly begin. She moved in with her son, while Bruce stayed elsewhere until the church wedding she insisted on. The house quickly became a hub of activity. Rebecca invited friends over and threw parties. Men came and went, but whenever Bruce questioned it, she brushed it off, claiming they were just cousins. He accepted her explanations, blinded by trust. In January 1997, their church wedding finally took place. It was lavish and extravagant, a day where they appeared to be the perfect couple. But behind the smiles, Rebecca's true feelings were different. At her bachelorette party, just days before the wedding, she reportedly admitted to friends that she didn't love Bruce at all. She was only in it for the money. The couple traveled to Hawaii for their honeymoon. Even then, Rebecca could not hide her disdain. She called friends back home and ridiculed her new husband, describing her intimate life with him in cruel detail. She said it was the most humiliating experience of her life. To outsiders, it was shocking. They hoped marriage might change Rebecca, that she might grow into the role of a loyal wife, especially with a man as devoted as Bruce. He tried everything to make her happy, remaining kind and loyal. But Rebecca didn't even attempt to play the part. The facade of marriage crumbled quickly. Once back from Hawaii, she resumed partying and spending Bruce's money freely. She cheated openly, and he either refused to see it or didn't want to believe it. Bruce increasingly avoided being at home, retreating to his work, and leaving Rebecca to her own devices. Within 4 months, the situation was beyond repair. Rebecca began openly talking about divorce. She even told friends how much money she expected to walk away with, but she miscalculated. Under California law, the fortune Bruce had built before their marriage was not subject to division. Still, she pushed ahead, determined to rid herself of him. The first signs of how toxic things had become came in April, when police were called to their home after a loud argument. For Bruce, the stress became unbearable. Calm and soft-spoken by nature, he was not prone to anger, but being pushed out of his own house was too much. He moved out and sought legal advice, finally beginning to see that Rebecca was motivated by money, not love. The division of assets after Bruce and Rebecca separated was hardly what she had envisioned. Because Bruce had purchased his home and accumulated wealth before their marriage, the law was clear. Those assets remained his alone. After everything was tallied, there was only about $5,000 to split. For her, it was an insult. But Rebecca was not ready to let go of Bruce's money. Even after their separation, she continued to use his credit cards without his knowledge. Designer clothes, flashy jewelry, expensive dinners, beauty treatments, and nights out with friends were all billed to Bruce. From the outside, her life looked polished, glamorous even. But behind the scenes, it was Bruce's steady income that paid the bills. At this point, Bruce had moved back in with his parents. His lawyer urged him to keep his distance, but Bruce remained hopeful. He believed, against all signs, that the marriage might still be repaired. Rebecca, always calculating, picked up on this and began dangling the idea of reconciliation. On Friday morning, July 25, 1997, she called him with a suggestion. Maybe they could start over. For Bruce, it was the best news he could imagine. That night, they agreed to meet at the same restaurant where they'd had their first date. He picked her up, and at 9:30 p.m., the couple arrived at the restaurant. By 10:30 p.m., they were back on the road. At Rebecca's suggestion, they stopped by her uncle's house, a man who had long been a father figure to her. They sat, talked, and everything seemed calm. Around 1 in the morning, they said their goodbyes and left. Rebecca was driving when the car pulled into a quiet, isolated stretch of road. She told Bruce she needed to step out and check the tailgate. While he sat in the passenger seat, a shadow appeared. Suddenly, gunshots shattered the silence. Bruce was hit. He scrambled out of the car, trying desperately to run, but another shot struck him in the back. As he collapsed, the killer moved in close and fired again, this time to his head. From a nearby house, a woman named Virginia glimpsed the horror through her window. She called police immediately. Officers arrived to find Bruce lying lifeless only a few feet from his car. Rebecca was seated near the hood, claiming she had been struck in the head and knocked unconscious. But something felt wrong from the start. She wasn't shaken. She wasn't crying. Instead, she calmly explained that it must have been a robbery. She even said her diamond ring had been stolen. But detectives noticed the details didn't add up. Her purse and phone were untouched inside the car. Bruce's wallet with cash inside was still in his pocket, and medical examinations revealed no sign of a head injury. When Rebecca spoke to investigators, her focus seemed strangely self-centered. She talked about what she wore that night, about her first date with Bruce, and about the restaurant, details that had nothing to do with her husband's murder. Detectives were not convinced. Background checks quickly revealed the truth about the couple's marriage. Friends and acquaintances stepped forward to describe Rebecca's extravagant spending, her infidelity, and her obsession with money. Then came the most damning discovery. Just 1 month before Bruce's death, Rebecca had secretly taken out life insurance policies on him totaling around $1 million. His forged signature was on the paperwork. If Bruce died, Rebecca stood to gain everything: the house, his possessions, and the payout. Investigators also learned that Bruce had no enemies, but witnesses recalled seeing a man at the crime scene, a young Latino male. When police looked into Rebecca's phone records, a name stood out: Alvaro Quesada. He was Rebecca's cousin, and he matched the description. The trail of evidence soon came together. Alvaro confessed to being the gunman, admitting that he had carried out the murder at Rebecca's request. His brother, Jose, also admitted involvement. Both men pointed directly to Rebecca as the mastermind. In June 2000, Rebecca Cleland, along with Alvaro and Jose Quesada, was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. The jury found that the crime involved special circumstances, financial gain, and lying in wait. Rebecca showed no remorse. Her sentence came in 2003, life in prison without the possibility of parole. She remains incarcerated at the California Institution for Women in Corona. Her cousins, Alvaro and Jose, are serving life sentences in California state prisons. For Bruce's parents, the verdict brought justice but no real peace. They had tried to dissuade their son from marrying Rebecca, sensing something was wrong, but he hadn't listened. After the wedding, they watched his spirit fade as he became more unhappy and withdrawn. He had eventually confided that he planned to divorce, but by then, it was too late. Bruce's life had already been marked by quiet dedication, first to his studies, then to his career, and always to the people he loved. He was known as intelligent, kind, and deeply gentle. His death, at the hands of the woman he trusted, shocked everyone who knew him. As his father later said, "She planned it from the beginning." Bruce Cleland's story is one of betrayal and tragedy, a reminder of how trust can be weaponized, how greed can twist love into something deadly, and how one man's quiet life was cut short by someone who saw him only as a means to an end. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.